I'll make another video here. Deciding which trig ratio to use. Now, you have definitions for all three trig ratios. Sine was the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Cosine was the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. And tangent is the opposite divided by adjacent. Notice that they all are something divided by something, and they use opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, and it could be very easy to mix them up because they're all so similar. So how are you going to remember which one is which? One of the things that you may have heard of before and it goes around is an acronym to help you remember it. How many people have heard people say for trig they learned about Sohcahtoa? And you're like, what does that stand for? What does that mean? Well, Sohcahtoa is just the definition. The S stands for sine. O means opposite divided by hypotenuse. The C stands for cosine. The A stands for adjacent divided by hypotenuse. And toa, the T stands for tangent. The O stands for opposite divided by adjacent. So if you can remember the crazy word Sohcahtoa, then you've memorized all three definitions all at once. And it becomes super easy. So that's where the Sohcahtoa comes from. Now if I draw a triangle, here's a right angle triangle with a right angle at the top. And I say, you want to solve for this x, you're given this angle, I'll do it all in blue. And you know this is 12. Which one should you use? Should you use sine, should you use cosine, or should you use tangent? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to highlight the angle that you know. That's the 35 degrees. Then label the side you want to find. The x, based on that 35 degrees, is that my hypotenuse, my adjacent, or my opposite? It is my opposite. And the side that I know, the 12, is my hypotenuse. Based on that, the angle, I want to find the opposite, I know the hypotenuse, you will use sine. Because you have opposite and hypotenuse with the angle. So from here, you could set up your definition of sine. Sine of 35 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. And from here, you could solve for it using the strategies we had before. So if this was a triangle, then because I've labeled it, and based on that 35 degrees, this is my opposite, this is my hypotenuse, then I would use sine. So let's look at another triangle. Let's put the right angle down here. Let's say, you know, this is 50 degrees, this is 10, and this is 8. So we have to decide, are we going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? So looking at this one again, I'll highlight my angle. The angle I'm talking about is 50 degrees. Oh, I need to have an x here. Let's say you're solving, whoa, for that side. There we go. Let's say you're solving for that x. If I'm solving for that x, what side is this? That's my adjacent. And the 10 is, what is the 10? Is that my hypotenuse or my opposite? That'll be my opposite because the hypotenuse is always right across from the 90. So based on those pieces of information, I've got my angle, I want to find my adjacent, and I know my opposite. Which one has adjacent and opposite in it? Tan. So I would set up my definition. Tan of 50 degrees equals opposite, which is 10, over adjacent, which is x. And then you could solve it from there. Let's do one more. Nice straightforward one. X is down there. We know this angle up here is 70 degrees. We want to solve for that x over there, and we know that this is 7. So highlight our angle. Here's our angle. We want to solve for x. X is which side? Hypotenuse. So right away by saying I want to solve for x, the hypotenuse, can you see that it won't be tangent? Now we know we're going to either have to use sine or cos, because we have to have the hypotenuse is what we want to find. And then the 7 is adjacent. So now if I look at those two that I have the adjacent, I want to find the hypotenuse. Sohcahtoa, which one has adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. So then we can write out cos of 70 degrees adjacent over hypotenuse, and then you could solve from there. And the solving is the same steps, whether it's sine, cos, or tan, and now that we've done 3 of those, it becomes straightforward. So in this one with the x on the bottom, what would we do first? Multiply both sides by x to get the x out of the denominator. Then you would have x cos 70 equals 7. To get x by itself, you divide both sides by cos 70, leaving you with x is 7 over cos 70. Type that into your calculator. See if you get the same thing that I do. 20.5.